Headed to SoFi Stadium? Skip the traffic and ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express, your direct $2 base fare round-trip ride from the Culver City Transit Center at Westfield, Culver City. Buses run on weekend game days every 20 minutes starting 3 hours before kickoff, with return service beginning at the start of the third quarter. And guess what else? We're hiring. Join our team and help keep the community moving. Visit culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500 for info on your next ride to the game or maybe your next job.
Good afternoon. Getting right down to business here. We're doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson, who's usually on at 3. And tonight at 5 p.m., stay tuned for the big game at SoFi Stadium. Yep, you heard me. The Rams are playing the 49ers for the top spot in the NFC West. That's what's at stake. Stay with 790 KBC for the big game tonight, the big 49ers game against the Rams. Keep us on at the game tonight as well. Right now, it's Mottek On Money, the voice of business news here in Los Angeles, live on the air on 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com, and, of course, the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple iTunes, YouTube, all your favorite podcast platforms. Well, the kickoff to the fourth quarter of 2025 has been a record-shattering winner so far. Stocks rallied to record highs across the board today. Bullish enthusiasm for AI continues with a focus today on OpenAI. Meanwhile, investors also keeping an eye on what's happening in Washington on the second day of the partial government shutdown and the potential impact of that. The Dow coming in for a closing gain today of 79 points at 46,520. The S&P 500 of 4 at 6,715. The NASDAQ gained 89 to a record high 22,844. All these numbers record highs. The yield in the 10-year note has eased to 4.08%. The price of gold at or near record highs today. Gold popping another $11 now at $3,879. Silver up 47 cents at $46.83. And platinum is up more than $10 at $1,596 per ounce. And crypto also rebounded today in a big way. Bitcoin back above 120,000. In fact, right now up to 123.33, pulling back about 600 here at the moment. It got up around 121,000 earlier. Ethereum is back above 4,400. Solana at 233, and Doge at the moment at 26 cents. NVIDIA hitting record highs again today, right now at around 188 and change, just below 189. OpenAI's valuation soared to $500 billion after an employee share sale boosted the tech rally today. The federal government, meanwhile, reaching day 2 of the shutdown. President Trump said today he would decide which Democrat agencies to close, in his words, and congressional Republicans and Democrats showing no signs of ending their impasse over funding for Uncle Sam. Cracker Barrel, here's one we haven't talked about in a while. Back in the news today, it looks like they've announced they're going to stop working with that consultancy that advised it on its logo change and restaurant overhaul that backfired over the summer. Some say it was a brilliant move. Others say it was horrible, raising further questions about that restaurant chain's path forward. Cracker Barrel stock today did close higher, up 81 cents at $44.19. They're also planning to take steps to streamline their leadership team as part of that announcement today. Finally, maybe some good news for California drivers. Oil is at the lowest price we've seen in 4 months, back down to around $60 a barrel, extending losses for the 5th straight day. After hitting 66 and change just about a week ago, Governor Newsom today signing a bill that could help bring down the cost of gasoline in California. Keep your fingers crossed on that one. The bill signed by the governor immediately allows California gas stations to sell higher ethanol fuel. Let's see what happens on that. Where were you 30 years ago tomorrow, October 3rd, when the verdicts of not guilty came in the trial of the century, the O.J. Simpson murder trial? He was found not guilty of killing his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend Ronald Goldman. Coming up, I'll talk to one of the central figures in that famous trial, and that is the one and only KATO, who became well known during the trial as the world's most famous house guest, and since then, an entrepreneur and doing a lot of things. KATO will be joining us live later this hour. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, and all the goings-on today. Jonathan HOENIG is with us, Fox News and Fox Business contributor, portfolio manager at Capitalist Pig Hedge Fund, and author of the book Price is Primary, How to Profit in Any Market at Any Time. Jonathan HOENIG, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Frank, I'm delighted to be with you, and all-time highs continue to roll on. I mean, not even the government shutdown seemed to slow down the U.S. stock market. And when you think about it, it really shouldn't. The economy isn't run out of Washington, D.C. It should be run out of Wall Street. That's where all these incredibly innovative names, the NVIDIAs, the Facebooks, all of them, that's where they live. So I'm glad to see the rally. I wish I'd been more exposed to it. I have to be honest. I've been a little bit surprised by the rally, but all-time highs is bullish. And as we always say, don't fight the tape. And I think that the trend continues until it does not.
On there live with Jonathan HOENIG, getting choked up here because these record highs continue here, stratospheric highs now. How much more do you think this has to go?
Well, I think you want to be selective here. For example, gold also at an all-time high, but with the AI names. So I think there are places to make money in this marketplace, but I think those Mag 7 and wonderful companies, but those big cap tech names that have led the market for 4 or 5 years now, I just think I'm seeing rotation, Frank. So I'm much more likely to even look at something like Africa. AFK is the ETF that I like in that space. Emerging markets, very low valuation, and more than anything, no herd. So I think there are places to make money, but you want to try to go off the beaten path and not continue on the big cap tech path, which has led the market for just too long.
Right, you've been very cautious along the way here on this tech rally. NVIDIA, as we speak, did close at a record high today, just below 189. And, of course, Apple has seen that big rebound this year at 257. Tesla saw an impressive rebound, pulling back a bit today. What makes you cautious on the tech names?
I mean, only the ubiquity of them, Frank. The concentration within the S&P 500 in those top 10 names is the highest in history. I believe something on the order of 60 or 70% of the entire market is focused on those top 10, primarily AI names. That always tends to correlate with a high, with a top in the marketplace. So I'm not a big bear, but for example, I'd much rather be buying something like IEV. That's an ETF that actually tracks European stocks. They're also at multi-year highs, but they're simply not trading at the valuations that the AI names in America are. And I just look at Cisco or Intel, any of the names that led the last big technology bull market in the late 1990s. A lot of those companies thrived, but their stocks never got back to where they were in the late 1990s simply because the valuations were stretched. So that's what I'm saying. Put money to work, but don't put it to work in areas that are so highly valued that it's going to take 40 or 50 years just for the company to make back its own earnings.
On there live with Jonathan HOENIG, and nothing lower tech than gold, which has really outperformed just about everything this year, right? And silver, too, making a run for the all-time high last seen back in 1979. Where do you see gold and silver go from here, and any suggested plays on those two?
Well, the best performing metal, Frank, this year, it's actually been one that we've talked about on your program, that is platinum. PPLT has been on fire this year. And, the old saying, rising tide lifts all boats. And just as it was big cap tech was in fashion across the board for many, many years, I do think you're going to see the same thing, gold, silver, platinum, and I'll add copper to that list. CPER is an ETF that just tracks copper prices. So I do think you want to have some exposure to these metals, both precious and industrial right now. GLD, SLV, PPLT, and CPER. You've got the entire complex in your hands.
That's fantastic. I was having lunch with some folks, big fans of yours, who remember when you were doing writing years ago for the one of the financial outlets, and so you've been doing this for a long time, and probably going back to when silver did hit a record high way back when. Are we going to see silver blow past $50 an ounce anytime soon?
So often, Frank, what we think of as being the high quickly becomes the floor. And I can even remember in the late 1990s looking at that high for gold. It was something on the order of $800 and thinking, gee, will that ever be challenged? Will that ever be challenged? Well, in a bull market, there are no tops. Another great saying, I believe, from Jesse Livermore. There are no tops in a bull market. So I do think that we eclipsed the all-time high in silver. But platinum PPLT, I have to tell you, I'm even more excited about. That hit its all-time high around $3,000 an ounce in 2008. And we're still, roughly half that price today. So I think PPLT, very, very thin market. And once these trends get going, they tend to pick up speed over time. So gold, silver, platinum, copper, I think all are buys. Don't make it your only investment, but certainly now is the time to have some exposure to these precious and industrial metals.
All right, and you remember when platinum was double the price of gold at one point over the years as well. So we're going to keep a sharper eye on platinum. Nobody was talking about platinum except here for quite some time, and now it's quietly moved up to where it is now at around $1,600 an ounce all of a sudden, and gold knocking on $3,900. It actually blew past that earlier this week, and a lot of analysts think it's going to at least $4,000 here, and silver right now at $46.83. Interesting, we got the government shutdown here. Market is saying, whatever. In fact, some are cheering the government shutdown. What about the government shutdown's potential impact on the market as this thing drags on? All right, we're going to have to get Jonathan another connection here. Hopefully we'll be able to rejoin Jonathan HOENIG here in just a moment to continue our conversation here. A lot more to talk about as far as the impact of the partial government shutdown, which kicked in after midnight yesterday and is extending into the second day. The latest news from Washington is that there is no agreement in sight, so it looks like there will be no jobs report tomorrow morning, Jonathan HOENIG. That's something we always anticipate from the Labor Department, but from my understanding, there's only one person holding down the fort at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So what about the shutdown, its potential impact on the economy, and the fact that we're not getting the jobs report that's was scheduled for tomorrow?
Well, we did get the ADP report, Frank, which was soft, which is a little disappointing. It's been one of the areas of the economy writ large that really there's evidence that is softening, and that is the jobs market. And, something I think just big picture you have to be worried about as an American with credit card bills at an all-time high, the job market softening, such a great opportunity with the stock market doing so well for people just to, as I say, build a fort, build an arc, build a financial portfolio that can withstand even a downturn in the stock market and potentially losing your job for a period of time. So, I'm not a Cassandra, but I'm just a realist. We've had a bang-up jobs market for quite some time, and even when the government eventually does restart, I am worried about the weakening jobs market. And, Frank, the tariffs, President Trump, with all respect, is touting as major accomplishments, but those tens of billions of dollars are taxes coming from Americans, primarily American businesses, small companies as well. So I'm a little worried the longer these tariffs go on, the more of a negative impact it's actually going to have on American businesses' bottom line.
On there live with Jonathan HOENIG, and let's see here. The latest tariff announcement marks a promised implementation of 100% tariffs on a range of pharmaceutical products and 25% duties on heavy-duty trucks. And all of this might be upended by a Supreme Court decision, which we're also expecting in the next month or so. What do you think would happen if the Supreme Court says this tariff arrangement is not going to be allowed?
Well, what's so destructive, Frank, is you talk with the biggest names in business. These are not men and women who act on whim. They are men and women who think 5, 10, 15, 20 years into the future. And you really have to when you're talking about something like pharmaceuticals that involved tens and tens of hundreds of millions of dollars of investment. So I think the president, I know his heart is in the right place in wanting to bring manufacturing home, but, there's a lot to be said about specialization of labor. A lot of pharmaceuticals are made in countries in Europe, for example, and they're made in Canada, they're made in Denmark, they're made in Sweden, and trade is ultimately beneficial. So that's my real fear, is that the tariff threats, the on again, the off again, is just ending up with reduced productivity, reduced hiring, and ultimately a slowing economy as we move into 2026.
All right. Have you come around on cryptos here with Bitcoin back above 120,000 here today, and ETH also getting close to 4,500 again. Doge also at 26 cents here. What are your thoughts on the crypto space?
I mean, how can you not, Frankie? How can you not? You stand in the way of this freight train. And I think it's the nature of bull markets. You know, it's like they lure everyone in before the end. There's a wonderful story of Louis Rukeyser, the great Louis Rukeyser, firing his last bear, I believe, in 1999 or early 2000, just as the stock market peaked. So the crypto market's going to lure everyone in, Frank. I can't say I own it for clients over at capitals.com, but look at the 20-day highs. They're full of these crypto plays. So, you know, don't fight the tape, and the trend for crypto is decidedly higher. Hats off to people who had the tenacity to stay with this bull, even amid a lot of questions, but the price is pointing higher, and I don't stand in the way of that freight train. Not yet.
Louis Rukeyser, a blessed memory. What a great guy he was, and we remember him fondly at this moment. And at this point, Jonathan HOENIG, any specific places where you are putting money now or taking it off the table? Hopefully we'll have that answer here in just a moment. Looks like we're having some phone issues here today, but hopefully we can get Jonathan back to answer that important question on a record-shattering day for the market, with the Dow closing up 79 points today, the S&P 500 of 4, and the NASDAQ up 89. We have record highs across the board for all the major stock market averages, and interestingly, the yield on the 10-year note has moved back to 4.08%. Gold knocking at record highs here at 3,879. Platinum at 1,596 and change, and silver of 47 cents at 46.83 an ounce. Jonathan HOENIG, of course, the top guy at Capitalist Pig Hedge Fund, also author of the book Price is Primary, How to Profit with Any Asset in Any Market at Any Time, also Fox News and Fox Business contributor. Jonathan, thank you very, very much for joining us here, and look forward to speaking with you soon here again on Mottek On Money on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues, 790 KABC. Good afternoon. 790 KBC welcomes Brian Regan, the comedian, coming to the Long Beach Terrace Theater on March 7th, 2026. Put that on your calendar. Tickets are on sale this Friday at Ticketmaster.com. That's tomorrow already. Right now, caller 9 wins. 1-888-790-5222. You can get a pair of tickets to the show if you're caller number 9. Call now, 1-888-790-5222. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Record-shattering day for the stock market on day 2 of the partial government shutdown. The Dow coming in for a closing gain of 79 points, settling at 46,520, an all-time high for the Dow. The S&P 500 of 4 at 6,715, and the NASDAQ of 89 at 22,844. The yield in the 10-year note is back down to 4.08%. Gold continuing to knock at or near all-time highs here, up $10.90 at the moment at 3,879. Silver moving higher today at 47 cents at 46.83, and platinum up nearly 11 at 1,596 and change. The price of oil back down to around $60 a barrel. Oil has hit the lowest we've seen in about 4 months. What's happening there and what's happening here in California with gas prices? We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about that with top oil industry analyst John KILDUFF coming up here in the next half hour. Tesla shares pulling into reverse today, down more than $23 at $436. Apple up $1.68 at $257. NVIDIA, the magnificent one, at a record high today of $1.65 at $188 and change. Taking a look at some of the other big names, Intel up $1.36 at $37.30 as that stock continues to rally. Looks like AMD might soon be partnering with Intel, and we're going to be keeping an eye on those two here. Of course, we're all shareholders of Intel, according to Uncle Sam. We see AMD stock. Let's see if we can bring up the closing quote on that one, up nearly $6 today at $169.73. Cracker Barrel shares moving higher today, up 81 cents at $44.19. Looks like they fired their marketing company, who changed their logo to mixed reviews. Some think it was a terrible move. Others thought it was brilliant because it certainly gave Cracker Barrel a lot more attention that it hadn't had in years. Taking a look at the cryptos now, we see Bitcoin rebounding in a big way today. It was up around 121, right now at around 120,300. Ethereum is just shy of 4,500. Solana at 233, and Doge at the moment at 26 cents. Big game tonight. If you're heading to SoFi Stadium, guess what station you'll be able to hear that game right here. 790 KABC, the 49ers versus the Rams. So stay tuned just after 5 o'clock. We'll be carrying that game right here on your favorite station, 790 KABC.
Headed to SoFi Stadium? Skip the traffic and ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express, your direct $2 base fare round-trip ride from the Culver City Transit Center at Westfield, Culver City. Buses run on weekend game days every 20 minutes starting 3 hours before kickoff, with return service beginning at the start of the third quarter. And guess what else? We're hiring. Join our team and help keep the community moving. Visit culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500 for info on your next ride to the game or maybe your next job.
Bruin fans, fall is finally here. That means UCLA football is back in your life. Head out to the Rose Bowl to enjoy America's best tailgating and to make more unforgettable memories with the Bruins. Nico Iamaleava and the Bruins are ready to make an impact this year, and we need you cheering them at the Rose Bowl. Visit UCLABruins.com or call 310-UCLA-WIN to lock in your tickets today. 310-UCLA-WIN.
Action.
Next Roll is a groundbreaking podcast created and executive produced by Vernon Davis.
This is where we talk about reinvention.
The series explores the transformative journeys of athletes, artists, comedians, and entrepreneurs.
They don't just stop here. They just keep going.
Next Roll isn't about what's next. It's about why they do it, how they overcome fear, and the resilience it takes to keep evolving at the highest level.
That's what it's all about. Stay tuned.
Next Roll with Vernon Davis. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues, 790 KABC. Good afternoon. Have you been paying attention to gas prices here in Southern California lately? Well, of course, we always do that. The average price for regular gas here in the LA area is now $4.72 a gallon. That's actually about 20 cents higher than it was a year ago. Diesel at $5.17 a gallon. That's 32 cents higher compared to a year ago. Premium, by the way, is $5.11 on average here, also about 20 cents higher than it was a year ago. This at a time when the price of oil just hit the lowest we've seen in about 4 months, down to around $60 or so a barrel. We're paying, about 20 cents a gallon higher than they are in Hawaii, which is in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Looks like pressure is on in Sacramento. Governor Newsom today signing a bill that could help bring down the cost of gas, we're told. The governor signing a bill which would allow additional blend of gasoline called E15 fuel, specifically to be sold in California, while the Air Resources Board completes its ongoing work to study whether the additional blend can meet the state's clean air requirements. Let's talk about all this now with the leading oil industry analyst John Kilduff at Again Capital and CNBC contributor, a longtime contributor to this program as well. John Kilduff, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Always great to be on with you, Frank. Thanks so much.
Really appreciate it. And take it from the top, we see oil suddenly, despite all of the global tensions, hovering at around $60 a barrel. Give us an update from your perspective.
Yes, Frank. So it looks like OPEC and the Saudis, Saudi Arabia in particular, are looking to up their production, battle for market share. If the Saudis really do go down this road with the battle for market share, you could see considerably lower prices. I mean, I don't think they're quite there yet, and some of the folks that I talked to out that way are of the same opinion. But when oil went negative those number of years ago, what preceded that was a big ramp up in Saudi Arabian oil production and exports. And every time the price of oil has crashed, actually, it's always been a Saudi-engineered price depreciation to teach somebody a lesson. Either back in the day, it was to teach Venezuela a lesson because they were trying to compete for market share. Now it's the shale players and others out there. And also, too, I think some of it's a tip of the hat to President Trump, who wants these prices lower. And so the Saudis, for now, are willing to help out with that. So right now, given that, we are seeing that, WTI will probably break below $60 a barrel tomorrow, and we'll be finishing up the week below that level, which is a key level as far as trading goes, Frank. And we'll have to see. The flip side of that coin, unfortunately, though, is the strengthening resolve as it relates to Russia. If we do lose the Russian supply finally, that could more than offset what's going on with OPEC. So stay tuned. There's two really large inputs right now into determining the price of oil: Russia and losing those supplies, OPEC and the Saudis putting more oil on the market.
See it tonight, read about it tomorrow, but hear it now on Mottek On Money on 790 KABC. I'm there live with John KILDUFF, and again, Capital and CNBC contributor. Downward pressure on oil, but it seems upward pressure on gas prices, as seems to be always the case here in California, with regular, as I mentioned, averaging $4.72 a gallon. The average national price, by the way, is $3.16, so we're way ahead of the national average, as we always are here. $5.11 the average price for premium, $5.17 for diesel. Given this announcement here today by Governor Newsom and this new bill that he signed, will California drivers see any relief anytime soon?
Well, I don't want to be too critical, Frank, because I'm just happy that they're finally doing something for California drivers. So at least it's a half measure here. Just so everyone's aware, E15 means that your gallon of gasoline will contain 15% ethanol. So ethanol is made out of corn. Corn's super cheap right now because we're swimming in it, and the Chinese aren't buying our corn. So that's a cheaper input into the whole sort of chemistry of making a gallon of gasoline. I will tell you, though, if you're going to be facing a pump that has E15 before you fill up with that, check your owner's manual, check your warranty. A lot of the cars still, even the newer ones, don't particularly care for that level of ethanol in there because it burns hotter than regular gasoline. It can cause some problems. You're also going to see slightly less fuel efficiency with that. The ethanol, because it produces lower miles per gallon. So, but look, it's a start. If you notice, though, as well, if you read the details, CARB is still having an oversight role. Your California Air Resources Board. One of the bigger problems for you guys out there is that the CARB regulations really prevent gasoline from coming into your state from any other state. Because of that strict formulation. So, but look, I think the Governor Newsom, with his national aspirations, has woken up to the fact that this is a problem. It's probably the number one pocketbook issue. I mean, look, gasoline prices are in everyone's face every day. They go up. It hurts. And it impacts consumer confidence, Frank. You and I have talked about this before. Even though it's not necessarily a large expense or an additional expense, it sucks. It really diminishes consumer confidence, and sort of like that's the last push you need to get into a recession and an economic downturn. So they're finally learning that you have to be careful about the costs of food and energy. Why they needed that reminder, I don't know, but it's clear. But I think you and I spoke, I think, a couple of weeks ago about the California now trying to encourage refinery operations after, decades, it feels like, of doing the opposite. So hopefully there's an awakening here. I understand the environmental, agenda and concerns, but this is our economy, and the economy is the most important thing.
Right. You put it so well, and looks like a couple of refineries are said to be closed soon, so that too is only going to put upward pressure on gas prices here. And you're absolutely right. As gas prices go up, consumer confidence goes down. That's typical of what we've seen over many, many years of doing this. So what about these refineries that are set to close, and is there any chance to keep them open?
But I know that the governor is looking at it because he has to. I think they see the writing on the wall as to what happens here. I think they're going to be able to save maybe one of them, certainly not the second. But again, there's finally some encouragement and other uses to at least keep those assets going in a way that'll keep you supplied. I thought it was remarkable that one part of that legislation that you referenced about the E15 or other legislation requires the oil companies and the refiners to keep a suitable amount of gasoline and motor fuels in stock. Again, you could be forcing these refiners to buy high and sell low. It's a terrible policy in a way. I can tell you that there's a ton of active trading that goes on, and when they're left to their own devices, and I know a lot of times the oil companies are seen as public enemy number one, but I can tell you they do nothing but try to maximize their profits, but not in the way you think. They have to deal with the high price or low price of crude oil themselves, and this is what goes on. That's the reality. And I'll tell you this too: all the criticisms of, say, Chevron and Exxon. If we didn't have those, the prices would be much, much higher. These companies operate very lean, efficiently, and do a good job. And look, they are commodity operators. So when we talk about OPEC and Russia and things like that, they are impacted by all that as well.
Certainly, government regulations and taxes really pumping up the price of gas here. And it is to be noted that we're swimming in oil here. 100 years ago, as we've noted many times in this program, California accounted for 25% of the world's oil production, if you can believe it. So we are swimming in oil here, and despite all this, paying extremely high taxes. So based on the signals you're getting from Sacramento, are they starting to come around on fossil fuels?
They're most certainly coming around on fossil fuels, Frank. And I think what's been overlooked, too, if you look at tailpipe emissions from cars, they're down close to 100% from where they were in the 70s. I mean, a lot has been done. To the extent you're focusing on the carbon expenditures, that's one thing. But in terms of outright pollution and smog issues and the like, the motor fuels are really not the problem they were decades ago because of all the reformulations. And I think, again, this is the economy, and everyone's very sensitive to it. And, I think it's reached a point where folks are starting to ask themselves, like, why are we shooting ourselves in the foot over these policies? Why are we shooting our economy in the foot? And why are we, basically taxing folks, the working folks who have to drive? Out in California, you don't have the mass transit that I get the benefit of here in New York City. And they have no other choice. And most of the country has no other choice. That's why we have to be careful about our policies towards crude oil, gasoline, and diesel fuels.
Terrific, John. Well, thank you so much for taking the call here tonight. We'll look for you on CNBC and follow all this closely with you. That is leading oil industry analyst John Kilduff at Again Capital, also CNBC contributor. Thank you very much for taking the call here today, John.
Always my pleasure, Frank. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And let's get out to the freeways now on 790 KABC.
Headed to SoFi Stadium? Ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express. Just $2 base fare for a round trip from Westfield, Culver City on weekend game days. We're hiring too. Learn more at culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500.
Hey, Bruin fans, want to go behind the scenes with your favorite teams and athletes? How about getting exclusive merch and opportunities to enter sweepstakes like sideline access at the Rose Bowl? Introducing Blue and Gold Society, UCLA Athletics fan membership program created to support Bruin student athletes. Members receive benefits like exclusive gear, videos featuring insider stories, and incredible experiences courtesy of UCLA Athletics. Sign up today at blueandgoldsociety.com.
Start your day with America in the Morning.
I'm John Trout, your host.
From breaking news.
The U.S. Supreme Court with rulings. Shifting gears, Apple has released a new iPhone. Here's the Wednesday Business Report. It's far from a seller's market.
To politics and entertainment.
Moving into scary movie season, so why not another Conjuring movie? Shifting gears, Powerball jackpot is now the third largest ever in history.
Live long and prosper.
America in the Morning.
Fresh each day.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KABC. Where were you 30 years ago tomorrow, October 3rd, 1995, when the verdicts of not guilty came in after the trial of the century, the O.J. Simpson murder trial? He was found not guilty of killing his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend Ronald Goldman in front of her condo on Bundy Drive in Brentwood. The murders happened in June 1994. He was later found liable for the murders in a civil trial in Santa Monica. O.J. Simpson died last year at the age of 76. Joining us live now, one of the central figures in that famous trial, the one and only KATO, who became well-known during the trial as the world's most famous house guest, and since then, entrepreneur and doing a lot of things, including a podcast these days. KATO, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Frank, how are you? 30 years ago, I'm telling you and telling everybody that's listening, it goes by in a blink of an eye, and it really does. Certain days, Frank, I go, oh, it seems like such a long time ago. And then when, talking to you or doing my podcast, it goes, my God, it feels like it was just last week. So I have a motto now. I no longer really count the days. I just have all my days count. That's where I'm at.
You're absolutely right. The days are long, but the years are short. It's hard to believe it's been 30 years. And that's how long we've known each other. KATO, when you think back at the trial and then the day the verdict was read 30 years ago tomorrow, what are your thoughts?
Well, I was actually at the Century City Plaza Hotel and sitting next to the late, great Barbara Walters. And when they had the verdict come out, I just kind of whispered. I said, I think they made a huge mistake. But I really believe by sitting in that stand for 6 days that I could. My opinion was I could see the jury was really on OJ's side, and I thought that's probably what they would say, that it would be a not guilty verdict.
Heartbreakingly, you knew Nicole Brown Simpson very well too. Can you tell us about her and her friend Ronald Goldman?
Yeah, I can't speak for Ron. I can tell by meeting Kim and Fred Goldman that he was just a terrific person. I never had met him, but just talking with Kim and doing her podcast, and then meeting with Fred and breaking bread with them, I know that he was raised right, and he was a wonderful person. And with Nicole, she's just honestly this beacon of light. She was so full of energy, and she had so much life. And it's horrific that she's missing out, and then seeing her kids growing as adults, and never have a chance to have grandchildren. And my heart just goes out to the Brown family and her, of course, her kids. So it's like I said, 30 years ago, so much growth that she missed out on.
No other suspects being sought in those murders, right?
No, nothing. It's I do a podcast with another broadcaster named Tom Zenner, who's terrific, and it's a true crime. And I didn't want to do any kind of true crime show, but then I said, Kato, you're associated with this no matter what. So I embraced it, and now we're just hitting huge numbers, and we've had most of the players from the OJ trial, and it's really amazing. And I became friends with Detective Tom Lang, the lead detective, so much so, Frank, that 2 weeks ago I was asked to do a public speaking with Tom Lang. We did 3 hours in the in Monterey and Carmel and Seaside, and Chief of Police Nick Borges hired us, and he was the moderator. It was so cathartic and so wonderful to have all these people in the audience, and to be able to tell a story, but actually paint a picture of the entire story. And working with Tom Lang, is a kind of a dream come true to find out what police working with evidence. The evidence that was never used will just blow you away. And we do that. Tom's done our podcast. We've had Jill Shively, who saw the Bronco coming back from that night from Bundy, and Skip Junis, who saw OJ put his hand down a garbage can at the airport. He was parked right behind him, and just so much that we never heard in the trial. So it's doing the 1 Degree of Scandalous and on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. It's just been so cathartic and the best experience.
That's wonderful. That sounds terrific. Detective Tom Lang, I was there in front of the house when Detective Tom Lang was marking off the bloodstains on the driveway there. I was covering that right from the beginning there, right in front of the house, and they showed a video of me on a cell phone when Dennis Fung was carrying bags of evidence out of the place right in front of my little news vehicle there at that time. And what's also interesting to note, I think the dinner, it was shared with me, the dinner Nicole Brown Simpson had organized for her mother was originally scheduled for Toscana in Brentwood, but the party got too large, so faithfully they moved it to Mezzaluna. I reported this back at that time, back in '94, and faithfully that's where her mother left the glasses, and Ronald Goldman, the waiter, brought the glasses back to her place, and then the murders occurred.
I never knew that, Frank. That is really an amazing story that that it was going to be Toscana. I mean, I've never heard that, and you're being in that thing with Dennis Fung, that photo and that image, that's just iconic, and I know exactly what you're talking about, and it just, to this moment when you said that, it just comes right back to mind.
Yep.
I remember that completely. It played over and over and over on every network.
On to your live with Kato Kaelin. Tell us more about your podcast, and I know over the years you've done a lot of entrepreneurial things. You've become a business person too. Kato, give us an update on what you're doing now.
Well, one of the highlights, of course, is for some reason I keep bumping into Frank Mottek at every place I go to. From having dinners at the Peninsula Hotel, I see my buddy Frank. From going to the Beverly Hills Hotel, the Polo Lounge, I bump into Frank Mottek. So, yes, Frank, you're sort of the iconic person. I bump into you everywhere. And as far as what I'm doing in my life, the speech that I just done is turning into more. So I'll be doing more of these public speaking and talking to law enforcement, which I love. Just wrote a show and shot the pilot in Brooklyn, and it's called Wrong Place, Wrong Time, and hopefully that'll get picked up. And myself and Tom Zenner, our podcast is just spinning off and doing huge numbers. It took forever. It took 3 years, and now it started with seeing tunnel at the end of the light, and now I finally see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's just grown and grown and grown, and getting advertisers and growing with this, and I totally embrace the true crime, which is not like me only because I love laughing and I love the light, but I still host different shows where it's not trial related, and have fun doing that, hosting comedy shows and around the country. So I'm kind of loving that a lot too.
That's so wonderful, Kato. Where are you living these days?
Can I say my address on the phone? I'm kidding. Sounds like Frank. Frank, I don't have a guest list. Is that what you're pushing? You want to stay with me or what?
Right.
I live in an area called Toluca Lake, which I'm in love with. Just great.
Oh, that's wonderful. No more roommates.
Walk everywhere and meet people. And that greatest thing is, Frank, it's one of those places. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and in Milwaukee, everybody's friendly and says hi to you when you walk in the streets. That's what Toluca Lake is to me. It's friendly, and you can walk day or night, and it's really safe.
Wonderful, Kato. Well, all the best to you. Thank you so much for taking this call here today. Again, everyone should subscribe to Kato Kaelin's true crime show on YouTube. It's called 1 Degree of Scandalous with Kato Kaelin and Tom Zenner. Kato, thank you very, very much. Wish we had more time here and hopefully have a chance to connect with you again very, very soon. Thank you very, very much for joining us on this 30th anniversary of the end of the O.J. Simpson trial.
Thank you, Frank, for your time.
You're terrific, Kato. Thank you very much. I hope to see you again soon. Stay tuned now for the news update, and then I'll be back with a recap of what happened on Wall Street today. We have record highs across the board. And then stay tuned for the big game tonight at SoFi Stadium. Yes, we're carrying the 49ers-Rams game tonight that you'll be hearing right here on 790 KBC shortly after 5 p.m. Stay tuned, 790 KBC.
Headed to SoFi Stadium? Skip the traffic and ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express, your direct $2 base fare round-trip ride from the Culver City Transit Center at Westfield, Culver City. Buses run on weekend game days every 20 minutes starting 3 hours before kickoff, with return service beginning at the start of the third quarter. And guess what else? We're hiring. Join our team and help keep the community moving. Visit culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500 for info on your next ride to the game or maybe your next job.